Alright, Milk Money from 1994. Directed by Richard Benjamin. It's about these three boys. I think they're studying sex or whatever, sex ed. Because it's been a while since I've seen the movie, I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. In one scene, they're watching a porno movie, and when the movie's. Let me start over, I'm sorry. The movie's about these three boys. Uh, which one was it? Frank. The main kid is played by Michael Patrick Carter, Frank Wheeler. He lives with his dad, a single dad. I think their mom died years ago. I forget. Played by Ed Harris, Tom Wheeler. And the two other kids, Kevin Kline, played by Brian Christopher. And what was that kid's name? Brad, played by Adam. Forget the last name. Livingston. Sorry. Anyway, the three kids, while they were watching this porno movie, because they're studying sex. Yeah, Brad is the one that tells them if they want to see a real naked lady, they must go to the city. And so they get all their allowances. I mean, their money that they have that they save, so they could go to the city to see a naked woman or pay a prostitute. Later, this mugger, he sees the kids and they go to this parking garage, and he says, "You gotta trust me. I got a gun." So he holds the boys up. Meanwhile, this prostitute played by Melanie Griffith, sorry, her character name is V, like the letter V. When she's in the limousine with this rich old guy who's paying for her services. When the two sees the mugger, the prostitute V, she opens the door, slams him in his face, and while she was getting out, just to make sure the boys are okay, they all stare at her like they're love struck. Like, yeah. She says, "Are you kids okay?" They say, "I'll say yeah." I always like that scene. But the rich guy, he dumps her with the limo. I mean, the rich old guy tells his limo driver, "Let's beat it," and throws her purse out, and he doesn't pay her. Anyway, the boys, they tell V that they want to see a naked lady, so she invites them to her motel room, and she does takes her clothes off. Only Kevin and Brad see it. Frank is like, "I want to be a gentleman," and covers his eyes. And that scene is so funny to me. So Frank tells V that she can hang around his place or hide out at his place. Sorry, because she owes a lot of money to this pimp played by Malcolm McDowell. I think his name is Walter. But before most of the movie, she goes to see the pimp played by Casey Siemaszko. Cash the pimp. That was his character's name, Cash. I like how his character, even though he's kind of like a little guy, not a real little guy, he's got a goatee, nice mousse hair, looks like he's tough. It's Cash and his girlfriend Betty, played by Anna Hedge. Her character's not too bright, but you like her anyway. But later on, B visits Cash, and I think she gives the boys his money to him, and he doesn't approve, but he goes out anyway to deal with, I don't know, Jerry the Pope or Walter. But on the news later in the movie, she watches the news, and Cash is murdered, I guess by Walter, and Walter's now hanging around with Betty because he wants the money too from V. But meanwhile, Frank tells his dad that there's a girl in the kitchen, and he sees the girl, and he can't believe that Frank brought her. Well, he doesn't know she's a prostitute yet, but I was like when Frank says, "What do you say?" His dad says, "Thank you." While he's staring at V. That is just so hilarious. I'm guessing Frank is trying to get V and his dad together so she can be a mother figure type to him or stepmom, whatever. Uh, there's also a cool scene where Frank he invites V to his class while he tells the teacher there's a phone call, or no, the announcer lady tells the teacher there's a phone call and a phone call. I'm sorry, and Frank tells me to come through the window, and the other boys, Brad and Kevin, they're like, wow. The other girls in the class that they can't believe that he brings V in, and he just tells them about sex. That was I always remember he gets an F on his paper about sex, and I forget what they were studying. It's sex education, I guess. Sorry, sex ed. I forget what they were studying. But I always remember Frank. Yeah, I always get his name confused. Getting an F on his paper, and his friends making fun of him for that. Later on in the movie, I'm sorry. I'm nervous when I'm doing this video. You know how I am. Tom and V, they go on a date. And up in the Frank's treehouse, V tells, well, first she tells him to take his pants off. I don't get that scene, but she later reveals that she's a prostitute on the run, or just a prostitute, and Tom gets upset with Frank. But then eventually, Tom and V, they see the scene where Frank throws some of his mother's things away because he's upset. But the next day, they seem to be getting along, and V teaches Frank how to dance because there's a school dance coming up. And later on in the scene where they go at the school dance, I forget to mention that Kevin's dad, Mr. Clean, cheated on his wife with V, so he paid a prostitute to have, I'm sorry, hold on. Sorry, I get nervous when I do this review. So Kevin's dad, Mr. Clean, who one time I think paid for V to have sex with him, he rats her out to Walter. So Walter and Betty, they chase V down in the town where Frank lives at. And at the school dance, I love the scene where Tom and Mr. Clean, that's his last name, get into a fight, and the children all the kids were chanting fight, 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 and they're trying to get away from Walter. He's at the school dance now, trying to track V down. And he tracks her down with his gun, and that's where I think Frank pulls the fire alarm so they can all escape. I like it. This is my favorite. At the end of the movie, this is one of my favorite scenes where they were all at the car. Frank was at the steering wheel, and Brad was on the pedals with his hands, and Kevin was just there at the back, just hanging out, and V joins them in the car, and they were all driving this car, mostly Frank and Brad, and Walter was chasing him down with Betty in his car, and they were just going all over the place with the car, on the sidewalks. They were not driving. They were not driving straight. And the car, was in bad shape anyways. A lot of stuff was coming out of the car. I think the pipe on the car, I forget. Where the one scene where Kevin's was looking in the back window. Sorry. He says, "Well, that scene on the car where it's gone. Well, it's gone." And Brad, underneath the seat, says, "Do we need it? Like it matters." So they were all in the car. The blue, I think it was a Cadillac. I'm sorry if I'm not getting it right. So they were all in the car, and they kept messing the car up. They eventually stopped to get out because the car caught fire, and V and all the boys get out unharmed, and the car explodes, and Walter's sinking. They all got killed, so he just drives off, and V disappears for a while, but she eventually returns to the town, purchasing the ice cream shop that the boys love to eat at, or whatever. And at the end of the movie, at the end of the movie, yeah, Frank, Frank discovers he has chest hair, which I know it doesn't really matter, but I just want to say that in this review. Frank looks at his under his shirt and says, "I have a hair. I have a hair." So that's the end of the movie. I know it's not a good movie. It's not the greatest movie ever. I know a lot of people don't like it, but that's a movie I used to own on VHS back in the day. I used to watch that movie all the time, so I don't know. I just love it. It's not a kids movie, but it's not a real dirty movie. It's PG-13. Like I said, my favorite scene of the movie was the car chase, especially where Frank and Brad were driving the car. Where Brad was on this hitting the gas with his hands, and Frank was steering it, and Kevin was just there helping V into the car when they were all driving. That's my favorite scene where they were going all over the place. But yeah, check out Milk Money. I know it's not the greatest movie in the world. I know a lot of people hate it. I know a lot of people shit on it. Like what that guy from YouTube. I'm trying to say his name correctly. The Nolasket, the Nolasket created or whatever. But Milk Money to me is still a funny movie. Anyway, I'm about to end this review, and please subscribe to my channel. You don't have to like me, you don't have to respect me. Please subscribe to my channel. I love to get more subscribers if you can. Anyway, that's it. I'm out. And check out Milk Money from Paramount Pictures, directed by Richard Benjamin.